Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to another edition of Intuitive Angling. Much appreciate you guys checking the video out today. Out here, the second day of practice here on Cherokee Lake, getting started. Wanted to kick out the video real quick. And if you guys saw the video I did yesterday, I was talking about how much pressure the lake was getting. And I literally this morning when I put in, I ran probably 4 to 5 miles down the lake before I could find a point that didn't have a boat on it before I could start fishing. So it's day 2 is still all about heavy fishing pressure. But anyway, today what I want to talk about, I'm going to give you guys some tips and have a little discussion on shaking fish off and why it's important to do it and sort of how I go about doing it. And first of all, this is obviously geared to the tournament anglers, because if you're a fun fisherman, you're not interested in shaking any fish off. So this is for you guys that fish tournaments. But there's a couple things that you have to consider here when you're talking about shaking fish off in practice that I've learned from over the years of fishing. First of all, before I get into talking about exactly how to do it, I want to give a little piece of advice on practicing and managing your fish. I'm going to show you guys how to shake fish off where you don't hook them, but you don't even want to let the fish see the bait a lot of times in practice, because I think what happens is if you stick the fish in practice and hook them, you're not going to catch that fish again. And I think that even if you shake a fish off, I think that you probably only catch maybe 25% of those fish that you shake off. I think that when you shake a fish off, I think it educates them, and I think it spooks them a little bit, even when you shake them off. So my advice before I'm going to show you guys how to shake them off is don't even let the fish see the bait. Say, for example, if you're fishing down a row of lay down trees or bushes or docks or whatever, if you get a bite, or if you catch a fish or get a bite, don't immediately keep fishing onto the next bush or the next dock. Crank up your motor and idle down 200-300 feet so you don't hit those areas that are high likelihood of getting a bite. And say, for example, if you fish down a row of boat docks and you're getting a bite on every 3rd dock, just pull up and leave. Don't sit there and count to see how many bites you can get. Because I hear some guy saying, well, I shook off 20 today. Those are probably 15 fish you're not going to catch in the tournament. So my advice in there is don't even let them see the bait. That's the best advice. Now, as far as shaking them off, what you need to do, first of all, it's all about how you have to figure out how to roll your hooks over. So what I do is if I'm fishing a crankbait or a jerkbait, I take the hook and I cut the hooks off below the barb so the fish can't get hooked. And what I do is I want to cut it off just below the barb to where there's a slight bend in it, so that way I can still feel a fish if it hits it. I'd show you guys, but I'm holding the camera with one hand. So basically just cut your hooks off on your crankbaits and your jerkbaits and your topwaters to where there's just a slight little bend on there to give you some resistance that you can feel the fish, because a lot of times those fish will come up and suck it in and you don't even feel them. So that's what I do on my treble hook baits. Now the jigs and stuff and the shaky heads, I'll show you guys. This is the Blockhead Old School. This is actually the one I caught yesterday. I caught my 2 biggest fish on it, brown with the green pumpkin. And you can see after I caught my 2nd fish, you see I got that hook rolled over on there. And you're going to say, well, God, I'm not going to roll my hooks over on a $10 Blockhead Old School jig. But if you're fishing for tens of thousands of dollars, you can afford to roll your hook over so you don't stick the fish that may win you $50,000. So what you want to do is just roll it over all the way down there. And then you can see there, I've got the point of the hook clipped off a little bit. So just make the point dull, because if you don't bend that hook over far enough, even if it's rolled over like that, sometimes they'll hook themselves. But when it's set up like this, guys, I can fish it and I can shake these fish off and they're not going to get hooked on there. By the way, if you guys are interested, I'll include the Blockhead Old School jig link in the description here. You guys can order some through Baitworks. And I'll be fishing this bait a lot this week here on Cherokee. So the worms, the way I do on my Texas rigs is what you want to do with those is get an offset worm hook, thread either your creature bait or your Texas rig on as normal, and then clip the hook off about that far below the bend in the offset, and then take a toothpick and put that toothpick through the eye of the hook. That way, that'll keep that hook from pulling through the plastic when you do get a bite, and you can fish it all day long with just one worm or one creature bait. So that's the physical rigging I do. And you may have a different way. Sometimes I'll use like those little teaser, the curly Q teasers, like for Alabama rigs, and I'll screw those in there. But there's a lot of different ways you can do it. So the thing that you want to do now, the actual shaking the fish off, this is another thing with it. You don't want, when you get a bite on a slow bait, like a shaky head or Ned rig or jig or worm or something like that, don't let the fish like swim everywhere with the bait. What you want to do is when you get that bite, you want to shake it. Just start shaking it pretty, not super hard, but just about like that, because the more you shake that, the quicker the fish is going to let go of it. Don't sit there and let the fish swim out into the middle of the cove, because a lot of times they'll swallow the bait. So when I get a bite like that, I try to shake it off, actually shake it as quick as I can. Now, when you're fishing a topwater or a crankbait or something like that, you know, you don't have to do anything because you don't have any hooks on there. But anyway, I think that there's two schools of thought in there. I hear some guys that they want to see what the size of the fish is, so they stick them. Other guys shake them off. Guys, after you fish a long time, you will be able to know how big the fish is when you get the bite, simply because the way that when the fish swims with its head turn, because you can, after you've caught a lot of fish, you can tell the size of the fish by the swath of the head turn. In other words, if you got a little fish, he's going to go like that. He's not going to have much of a head turn, but a big fish, a 4-pound plus fish, is going to have that wide turn to it. So you don't have to set the hook to know how big they are. I'd rather figure it out. I'd rather find out in the tournament how big they are than in practice. So anyway, guys, I'd recommend get good at shaking off fish. It's going to save you a lot of fish in the tournament, and it's going to help you do a lot better in these tournaments. So hope that helps out. I'm going to get out here and see if I can find a place to fish that doesn't got a boat on it today. I'll give you guys the day 2 update at the end of the day. I'm on a different end of the lake today. Going to try some different stuff, so we'll talk to y'all later.